Hello and welcome to So Farscape,
a fun-filled Farscape fancast by a fervent fan.
and a frankly fascinated first-timer.
I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay, and this is the story So Farscape. And we are with episode 311 this week, Incubator.
Wow, I've been honestly kind of a little bit like dreading is too strong a word, but I've been trepidatious about this one because it made some impact on me when I saw it the first time.
Well, imagine. I mean, we've had a little bits and snippets of what Scorpius has been up to in regards to discovering the wormhole technology. Mainly pilots getting liquefied in their cockpits.
Yes, sub-excellent.
Yes.
I think the official terminology is.
Mediocre. I mean, come on. Like Immortan Joe and Scorpius, there's like a little bit of comparison between the two.
Well, not Grunchlick? Grunchlick is Immortan Joe.
Well,
that's
yes,
the same actor as Hugh
okay,
Keith-Byrne.
fair point. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. In terms of the management style.
Yes, and character and you know.
Actually, yes, and also like physically grotesque and being held together by science and technology. Ooh, interesting.
So we get a lot of that this episode.
It's all Scorpius.
Pretty much, yeah.
So apparently in the writer's room of Farscape, they have an ideas board where they've got little post-it notes with just a phrase or a short sentence or an image. And for the longest time, Ricky Manning had one up there that just said, "A day in the life of Scorpius." And there wasn't a place for it in season 2. And then once they got into scripting out season 3, they realized, okay, well, it's been a while since Scorpius been sort of part of the story. Time for this. Let's drop this in.
Yeah. Well, it's not entirely a Scorpius episode. I mean, there are scenes on Moya, but they kind of serve the plot more towards
They're really
Scorpius.
B-plot, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. It's just like, I mean, we've gone without Shana and Yul and Dargo for 2 or 3 episodes now at this point. So I kind of imagine they kind of wanted them back in.
Is that the case?
Yeah. We've had the
No, we had Losing Time. That was 2 episodes ago.
Well, okay, so 2 to 3 episodes. Like it was like the last 2 episodes have been about John aboard Tallinn. Black John, I believe, as he's referred to.
Black tea, yeah, because based on the color of their t-shirts. No, they're alternating.
No.
But okay, well, we have our handy database here. Let's have a 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a fan war.
Yeah.
308 was Green-Eyed Monster, so that was on Tallinn.
That's no moon.
Yeah.
With the boo-dong, dong, dong, a boo-dong, dong.
Yeah.
And then 309 was Losing Time, and that one was back on Moya.
It was like a lake of blood. It was biblical.
Was it, though?
Yeah.
Biblical.
With the Energy Rider, right, taking over Pilot.
Oh, yes.
And then 310 was Relativity. That was last week's, and that was with Zalak's.
Senior Officer Zalak's son.
And the Retrieval Squad, so that was back on Talon, who was grounded.
I completely
and
forgot
now we're
about
back on.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Losing Time. It just does not exist in my memory.
Really appropriate. But I totally get what you mean, because I didn't really sort of figure out that they were alternating while I was watching it. Like I didn't think about it in those terms, even though it's obvious.
I mean, I would have expected them to do that, but yeah, it's like it doesn't feel like it.
It's really interesting at this point because I sort of spoiled it for you that they were alternating back and forth by saying, that last one was a green tea episode and so is this one again. But it was really interesting to see how the fandom sort of divided because, I mean, the choice to split up the crew was pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Especially for it to last as long as it did.
Yes.
You expected it to be resolved within an episode or 2, so did most people. And so for a lot of people, they got really invested in one.
They got a favorite timeline or a favorite crew.
And then the other sort of felt like, filler? Right?
Ah.
And so I don't fully remember which side I was on. I think I was on Team Green Tea because I was much more into the sort of wormhole and Scorpius relationship than I was never a big like John Aaron shipper.
There's a lot of been said by our listeners about this episode.
Oh gosh, yes.
We have like a lot of synopses. So here we go. We start off. If you can't get real Crichton, homemade is fine. Find out how many ways you can make a human smoothie on this episode of Muppet Babies. Thank you, Horseburd.
Oh, good gravy. This one's a song. Like the Beverly Hillbillies theme.
Oh, I know that, but it's been a while.
Come and listen to my story about our favourite Dom villain. Can he convince our leading human to side with him? Oh, I'm making it into Johnny Crichton's bit again.
Yeah, you are.
A Sebacean and a Scarran, quite an interesting mix. Our villain figuring out why wormhole technology was in quite a fix. Will revenge be a dish best served cold by the end of the day? Or will our villain be frustrated in dismay? Coolant rods, that is. Oh, no, now I know. Beverly Hills, that is. Well done, Brian. Thank you.
To trust Scorpius or not? That is the question. Yes, trust him. He's absolutely correct about things. Wink. Thanks to Derp Prime.
And a neural chip gets a history lesson and finds out why someone made a sweet move to join the army and get their pet project paid for. Oh, say that 10 times fast. Dreams made of deep space exploration could be made a reality by a strange visitor. Very good. But they could also melt away before they're realized. Oh, well done, Lucy.
An orphan shares the harrowing details of his tortured childhood at the hands of his wicked stepmother. But his audience remains unsympathetic to his plight, which really burns up his second-in-command. Oof. It's a hard-knock life. Thank you, Jenna.
And squeaking in at the last moment, Billy Roberts with Get Ready for a Villain to Not Be As Bad As You Think He Is. We learn of Scorpius' backstory of how he became the peacekeeper he is. Will John give in and help? We shall see. Wow, these are some fantastic synopses. I love the sort of visual poetry, and it sort of makes sense because it's a really, arch, almost gothic story.
It is.
I felt a little, I was a young writer when this came out, and I think I was collabing with a friend of ours. She was a Brazilian artist who lived in the Netherlands for a while. On some project that we never wound up making. And I was writing this villain that had this horribly tormented backstory, and I was just piling on the sort of gothic Elizabethan misery and body horror, and then I saw this episode and go, oh, okay, so it's not just me. Okay, good. Apparently everybody does this with you just have a horribly tormented... bad
guy.
Well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, it's been done. I have to come up with something else now.
Story of my life.
So, yes, the episode.
We have got the music.
Prepare the starburst.
Yeah.
Ooh. And that's kind of the sound we get at first, because they're bringing in another prowler.
Auto-retrieval sequence complete.
Yes, and in the sort of landing bay, we've got two people at the window watching the prowler being brought in. One of them is Braca. The other is a woman that we haven't seen before. She's a curious alien with white hair with blue tips and sort of patterning around her jet black eyes. She's very confident. Braca is not so sure because the pilot still hasn't signaled in yet.
The pilot still hasn't responded. Another failure.
It can't be. Phase-negative shield deployment will eliminate the tissue liquefaction effect.
And they open the ship, and it's more pilot soup that comes running out.
Prowler pilot soup, not pilot.
Right, yes, of course. Ooh. This woman, who seems to be a scientist as well.
Yes, her name is Linfer.
Linfer. She proclaims that it must have been the pilot's fault that they didn't configure the shields right.
It can only be attributable to Sebacean error.
Yes.
Even when Strappa shows up, Kokura Strappa, the lead of the project.
He's a Denari, right?
I don't think his species is mentioned.
Okay.
Her species is mentioned as a Relgarian by pilot later on, but I don't think Kokura Strappa's species is mentioned. He looks so harried.
He does, but, can you imagine being a project leader under Scorpius?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, I'd be harried, and I'd be a terrible project leader under a good manager.
I mean, we've seen a lot of very confident peacekeepers before. Linfer seems to be one of them.
Yes, but Scorpius seems to be the kind of person who wears down that kind of confidence in his subordinates.
Jedman mustn't have followed instructions. If he didn't recalibrate his phasing prior to exiting the wormhole...
Don't blame the pilot for your mistakes.
I made no mistakes. I have correctly interpreted the equations from the neurochip.
Not with Linfer, because even when Scorpius shows up, Linfer says, no, I'm sure this was right, and in fact, I'm going to pilot it myself.
I'll prove it, yes. At first, I mean, as soon as she was, complaining that it must have been Sebacean error, I was like, oh, put your money where your mouth is and prove it, which she, in fact, does.
Yeah.
The one element we lacked is the correct phase progression, and I'm convinced we have that now.
Convinced?
Yes. In fact, I wish to pilot the next test flight myself.
There's a bit of a display where we see the information that was pulled out of John's brain, but it's encrypted. It's a little bit of back and forth over like, oh, we didn't get all of it. Well, we did get all of it, but it's like, yeah, we can't get to it.
Yes, because Strapper had the data, as he insists on referring to, checked by the coding section and found this chunk, which Linfer sort of dismisses. Like at best, it's just junk, and at worst, we don't need it because my science is
as good as your science.
Yeah, exactly. And so when she asks for permission to pilot the next mission, Scorpius overrules Strapper's objection.
As your project leader, I cannot allow you to take the risk.
Oh, permission granted.
Scorpius is the kind of guy who rewards that confidence, and if it comes with its own built-in punishment, then he's also fine with that.
Oh, yes. Officer Cobrin at the start of the season.
Yes.
The little hotshot pilot that was eye-frelling.
Yeah, if he's like, if you think you can do it, I'm willing to give you the opportunity. And if you do, then you'll get the reward. And if you don't, then, well, that's too bad.
That's the peacekeeper way, isn't it?
Yeah, voor jou twee anderen, as they say. For you, two others in Dutch.
Yes, plenty more where those came from.
That's the one, yes.
Our time grows short. We have to take risks.
It looks really cool, that display of data. Mm-hmm. It's this sort of web of symbols in these streams. It
looks a bit like Deep Space Nine, but
it's sort of evocative of like complex multidimensional math written across multiple membranes, and I kind of like that. But he asks for the chip to be handed to him. Mm-hmm. He says, bring me the chip, which is right in front of him, and Kokura has to walk all the way around the table to get it and walk all the way back. It's like Sherlock Holmes asking Watson, can you give me my phone? Sure, where is it? In my pocket? And he also summons Nurse Froy. Nurse Froy and Braca join him.
I like her hair.
Yeah.
She's got like blue chick hair, I suppose.
Yeah, a new PK Barbie. I don't think we've seen this one before. We've seen one with red hair before. I think we've also seen one with blue hair before. Ooh, I don't know for sure.
And we see the spy microphone plant that he's got in his quarters, apparently.
What?
I'm referring to a episode of Allo Allo, which is a British comedy series for the people who are not aware of that, which takes place during World War II. And at a certain point, there is I think it's a vase of daffodils or something, which contains a spy microphone, which, when it's activated in the officer of the German commander, it's like one of those daffodils just like comes up on a straight stalk. It's really obvious that it's a fake one. And then kind of starts turning around and facing whomever is talking at the time. And this kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, he does have interesting decorations in his boudoir. It's this, what does it look like to you? It looks like some sort of, I don't know, maybe succulent? You know how they sometimes have spiky bits that are...
No, it's it looks like a bird of paradise plant.
Oh.
Let me find you a picture of that.
Bird of paradise. Yeah, Mom's garden. Dime a dozen.
This looks just like it.
Do those grow in Australia? Do you think he's gone sort of flower picking in between scenes?
Here, have a look. This is what the flower looks like. It's clearly...
Oh, yeah.
Very clearly inspired on that.
Right. Well, I guess those are native to both Australia and space, apparently.
Yeah, maybe it got smuggled around. But no, actually it didn't get smuggled along by John, because we know for a fact that it was on another planet. But we will get to that later during the episode.
Yes, because now begins the real meat of the episode. All of this that we've seen so far is kind of a framing story for a show and tell,
I suppose, yeah.
Right, session.
Yeah, the neural chip gets placed in his little screw-out cooling rod holder, and apparently it's like one of those near-field technology chips that you can just put in there, and you can just kind of maybe spit on it or use a little bit of chewing gum to stick it in there.
No, they're better than that. They're better than that. She did say that the socket has been installed.
Yeah.
Socket in place. Ready to install the neurochip.
So apparently that's what she did first.
And then she kind of just sticks it on there anyway.
I mean, if it's a good socket, then it's it's reversible, right? It's like a USB-C, which is better than the other USBs. And now he's got that in his brain, and now it's time for a nap.
Yes, he has a little lie down, and in his mind's eye, we see this featureless room with fog on the floor, and
he wakes up in a BBC music video.
Yes,
I sort of expect. I'm walking in the. No, what's the other one with the woman who squeals really high? She had a music video like this, didn't she?
I have no idea what you're referring to.
Like a moonlight shadow.
Oh,
no,
I
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's a
sort of Enya era of pop music.
I know who you're talking about. That is.
Didn't she have whoever that was?
You're thinking of Kate Bush, and that's not what I'm talking about, and that's not the one who did. Moonlight Shadow is by.
You know we can edit.
I know, that's why I'm like...
Yeah, but now this is too much fun to edit.
I just can't get the name. Oh, come on, that guy who did Amarok, Mike Oldfield.
Wait, but it was a woman's voice, wasn't it?
Yes. I mean, he produced it, and he just hired the last to sing it.
Oh, okay, some session musician. All right, fair enough. But, yeah, I mean... Doesn't this look like the kind of set where you've got there's fog on the floor, mist in the air, there's a single light from above. It sort of looks like a Eurovision Song Contest intermission scene from the 90s, right?
But it also looks like a lot of the scenes we've seen between Harvey and John. You know, when he's like sitting in a car and it's ostensibly meant to be a drive-in.
Yeah.
I thought it much more mirrored that. Like, it just seems to be the kind of like mindscape thing that they're going for when it comes to other people living in your brain.
Very good, because this is exactly that. Because Crichton shows up. Crichton with his long leather duster. Oh, let me look at it. No, it's not quite right. Okay, so what we take away from this is that the Crichton he's communing with is a sort of neural clone that was also absorbed by the neural chip while it was in his head.
So now there are 3.
Yes, great. Isn't that just great?
With an attitude like that, you really think you're the best of the 3 of us?
Hey, more Crichtons the merrier. Fanfic readers out there, have a field day. And this was extracted from his brain at the end of season 2, right, during Domme Dichotomy. And so that's where Ben Browder sort of came at the character here, played him with that sort of nihilistic attitude, because 5 minutes ago, he watched Aaron die.
After the opening credits, Scorpius asks John,
Tell me, what's the last thing you remember?
Which
yes,
is
very
like
good.
you were digging around in my brain.
Ice Planet, diagnosing. He was digging around in my brain trying to pull your chip out of my...
Oh, no, he screwed up? I kicked it on the table? I am in hell!
Oh, no. The diagnosis was successful, and the neurochip was removed.
The thing that I sort of complained about that was a little bit of a mistake is Crichton still has season 3 hair. He doesn't have the spiky hair that I sort of liked. He's got the thicker sideburns and the comb down.
I guess it would have been too difficult to like switch back and forth between those 2 hairstyles within the time frame of 1 episode.
I mean, this is a show that did My 3 Crichtons, right? Where you had sort of future Brain Pan and Neanderthal John in the same episode, and they can't like do sort of backcombing.
I don't know.
This is the sort of situation that Scorpius tries to explain to him, which, I mean, it's obviously a lot to take in. Hey, you're not real.
Strictly speaking, you're not John Crichton. But for my purposes, you'll do.
Oh.
Well,
he tries to walk away a few times, and it's sort of like in Labyrinth or something else.
Keep looping back to the same place, yes. And he goes like, how are you going to like convince me to help you? And he goes like, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself.
The sort of Beverly Hillbillies thing really kind of works. Now, let me tell you a story about, or however it goes. Because, yeah, Scorpius knows that this section of code might be important, and that Neural John might be able to help unlock it. And so he's going to tell him a story of woe and desperation. And that's the meat of the rest of the episode. Now, I have a sort of critical question for you at this point.
Yeah.
Do you think that Scorpius is telling the truth?
Ooh.
No wrong answers.
No.
I'm just curious where you're coming from, because...
Yes, I do.
I concur.
Yeah.
And so does David Kemper. Like, there doesn't seem to be any strategic value to lying.
No, it might be, exaggerated a little bit in places, but I would say that, to me, it felt like this was, in fact, Scorpius' actual backstory.
Yeah, I sort of agree.
Also, from a filmmaker's point of view, I suppose, it's like we don't know a lot about Scorpius at all, and this would be an excellent way of, getting the watchers clued in on what his backstory is.
Yeah, to evoke a little... I guess sympathy for the devil, right?
Yeah, and you can always like go back to like, oh well, we don't like that. Well, he lied about that part. It's like,
and there's a lot of gaps.
That too, yeah.
So now that Scorpio has a captive attitude, he starts his story in a sort of very Dickensian fashion. Oh, my first memory was of pain.
Yes, he's under the pain light. I think my dentist has one of those.
Hopefully it's not as uncomfortable as it seems to be for poor young Scorpio, who is in a bad way.
What the hell is that?
My first 12 cycles of life.
That's a little too much information. You can keep your memories.
So Dave Elsey, the creature effects coordinator, had a field day working out young Scorpius.
Oh, yeah?
Because his pet theory was that modern Scorpius that we see is the best he's ever looked.
Okay.
And this was the opportunity to show what Scorpio would look like without the various surgeries and therapies and injections and the suit that he's got keeping himself together.
It wasn't really... Yeah, it looks a bit odd and weird. It looks very whitey, I suppose, as in a white, looking like...
Oh, yes, WIGHT.
Yes.
Yeah,
I wasn't really sold on that, on the look of young Scorpius.
Okay, so here's something that maybe might turn it around. Dave Elsey's inspiration was this idea that Scorpius is a Sebacean Scarran hybrid.
Yeah.
Scarrans have an absurdly high body temperature, and Sebaceans have a terrible heat tolerance.
Yeah.
I can relate. Yes. And so the result is he was born in the throes of heat delirium, and he's effectively like a burn victim of his own.
Yeah.
Right, his own tissue can't withstand his own. So that's what, like, the sort of liquefaction of his face. And I mean, I don't want to get too gruesome about it, but I thought that was like, ugh. There's a lot of body horror in this episode.
There is. Speaking of bodies, I noticed just like. I think this is the first time we see a female Scarran.
Yes.
There's quite a lot of sexual dimorphism between them, isn't there?
Yes.
You will not cry. Sit up. Sit up. Faster. Why can't you sit up?
It's hot.
It's at less than optimum temperature. I will make it warm.
Tausa, her name is, and she's the caretaker and sort of a tutor.
Jailer.
Yes. Wicked stepmother. She's got a cool dress with these tubes. She sort of looks like a xenomorph alien. She has a much more squat jaw. Like the face is much smaller and more forward.
Right, and the head is smaller. I mean, Scarrans have these elongated heads. And,
like a horse head, yeah.
Yes, very much so. And she doesn't, and the females apparently do not.
I'm looking at this and I'm wondering whether her eyes are the actor's eyes or whether the eyes are animatronics as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, if they are her eyes, then she has full sclera contact lenses, so that you don't see which direction they're looking in. I mean, it's a great design. It's very spiky. It's recognizably feminine, despite the fact that, like, she doesn't have secondary sexual characteristics like breasts, which would make sense for maybe a non-mammalian species. But she does have high heels and a very sort of...
They do like high heels in this show.
Gives your butt a little lift.
I suppose, yes.
Bride of Dracula, kind of like, Nosferatu sort of silhouette.
And they do, and she does have the high shoulder pads that male Scarrans also seem to favor. So,
oh yeah.
So it's like I can see the look, but yeah, there's a little bit of casual torture, like you are weak and you're a Sebacean and you have to get stronger, otherwise, like we're going to. I mean, it's never really explicitly said that they'll kill them.
That there's an alternative.
No.
Do you know why you are here?
Because I'm weak.
Why are you weak?
I am partly Sebacean.
Because she is running this project of supposedly a rescued Scarran Sebacean hybrid.
Yeah.
Like that's the story that she's telling him, that he was the product of sexual assault.
Yes.
I mean, a bit of a content warning.
That wasn't lied, yeah.
Yeah. A bit of a content warning, but if you're listening to this, you have seen the episode, and so it does deal with sexual assault and the resulting pregnancy, which resulted in Scorpius. But the myth that she's telling is that the assailant was a Sebacean who assaulted an innocent Scarran woman, and that's why Scorpius has been rescued and is now being trained over the course of 12 cycles.
Yes, to be a proper Scarran, sorry.
To withstand the weakness of his flesh. They have a real obsession with strength and weakness, right?
Very much so.
Sebaceans are weak. Then you cannot be weak. You must become strong. Another weakness.
They sort of expose him to heat and deprivation and torment with the expectation that he will just overcome it.
Yeah, be the best person you can be, or, yes, the best Scarran. Because, yes, he has to rid himself of his Sebacean weaknesses.
Yeah, it's a brutal attitude.
Meanwhile, on Moya, the quest for wormhole continues, much to Dargo's chagrin.
We've been flying around aimlessly for nearly 15 solar days, John.
It's not aimless, Dargo. There's a wormhole out there. I can smell it.
This is almost like a holding pattern episode for the people on Moya, because there's not much movement between where they start and where they end.
No, for the last 14 cycles, they have been prowling around doing a search pattern, looking for more wormholes, and apparently Jewel and Chiana are getting fed up with it, and Dargo is sent out to go talk to John into maybe having a little shore leave.
Keeps Moya's mind off of Talon and the retrieval squad.
Well, it hasn't stopped me thinking about them.
Yeah, well, what do you want me to do about that? You're the one who decided we should stay away and let them deal with it.
Which suits you perfectly, so you can indulge yourself.
Fine. I'm indulging myself. Maybe I'm entitled once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while.
You want to push this, Mr. Let's go find my son?
Look, it doesn't matter what I think. The point is that Chiana and Jewel really need to get off this ship. They're driving each other insane. They're driving me insane. So do me a favor. Indulge them for once.
There's a couple of really interesting conflicts being set up, and they're mostly between everyone and John.
Yes.
Because John is the only one who seems to really have, like, a sense of purpose at this point, but his purpose is just to fly around and find...
wormhole.
Yep. Gain more wormhole information. And, like, nobody else has a better plan. They can't rejoin Talon. Moya seems to actually... Pilot says that she's enjoying the chance for free flight. But the key sort of conflict is that Dargo wants John to be honest about his selfishness.
Yes.
Because John makes excuses like, oh, it keeps Moya's mind off of Talon. No, you're doing this for you. And that's bad enough, but lying about it is worse.
Yeah, and that comes back later in the episode too.
Jewel also has a conflict with John, which is slightly different. She also calls him out on his hypocrisy, but she sort of cottons on to like the degree of respect that he has for others really depends on how much they agree with him.
Yeah.
It's funny how you support Pilot only when you both want the same thing.
That's crap, Jewel.
Truth is never crap.
Which is not entirely fair, but...
Isn't it?
I mean, they make the comment about, like, well, you only agree with Pilot and Moya because they're doing what you want to do, which is kind of what the whole point of agreeing is.
He respects choices that he would have made, and he doesn't respect choices that he wouldn't have made, but that's not how respect works. Like, either you respect someone's ability to make decisions for themselves with their, within their own authority to do so, or you consider them a subordinate, right?
Maybe. I mean, there's also just disagreeing with someone and voicing that. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is no respect.
That's true.
But...
And lastly, like, there's a sort of inkling of the continuing animosity between Jewel and Chiana, but I honestly didn't get much of that.
No.
I didn't get much of Chiana at all, honestly.
No, there's a little bit of stuff, but not... I mean, both Jewel and Chiana have tiny parts in this episode.
Especially Chiana is just also there and doesn't really get much to do, which is a shame, but I guess you can't have everyone doing everything all the time. Some of the writers, I think Ricky Manning was during one of the sci-fi.com chats, talked about how, like, splitting up the crew was actually a really, like it actually wasn't hard for the writers. They really enjoyed having the sort of time and the room to spend some time with these characters without having to balance like 84 characters in 42 minutes.
That makes sense.
Hey, look. Sorry if I snapped.
You could use some sleep.
Yeah, you're right. Pilot.
Yes, Commander. I'll wake you the microt Moya senses anything.
You're the man.
In this initial scene, Dargo manages to talk Crichton into getting some sleep.
Yeah.
And he calls up Pilot and says,
Pilot, let him sleep for 12 hours. Don't wake him up no matter what.
Agreed.
Pilot does this beautiful little weary sigh and goes like, yeah, I agree. It's like, even though Pilot has been very friendly and accommodating to John, he is definitely also seen that John is wearing himself too thin.
Yes, and everyone else around him, his wormhole obsession, because he tries to like frame it that, you know, if we have wormholes, we can all go home, and
yeah,
nobody's as into it as he is.
And he even throws it back at Dargo, says like, "Oh,
You want to push this, Mr. Let's go find my son?"
you know, like, why is this different?"
Yep.
Which is like fair. No. So more Scorpius torture in his youth.
With what condition were you born?
Sebacean heat delirium.
Also known as the living death. Who saved you from it?
Scarrans.
Who specifically?
You.
I love this set, this sort of prison where Scorpius is being kept. It's got like where sort of peacekeeper architecture is observably alien, but still very like based on rectangular shapes and straight lines and tubes and sort of the kind of industrial look that we're used to, but in an alien mode. This is really organic. Like the windows have these polygonal shapes in them, like cells.
Yeah,
under,
almost like a not quite honeycomb.
Yeah.
No,
But
it
it's
feels a lot
irregular.
more like Moya than it does like a command carrier.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because of the sort of round shapes and the organic sort of there's a lot more that's transparent. They've got all these bubbles, and it feels like you're inside an organ.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Ugh.
So yeah, this is like, I mean, at this point I'm feeling like, okay, this is just Scorpius trying to like get the sympathy plight from John.
Yeah.
Which which is pretty much what he is doing. He's just setting him up for his final argument.
The home movies are fascinating, Scorpy, but why show them to me?
Patience. And all will be clear.
Now, what do you think is the sort of motivation for being this honest about this weakness of his? What do you think it's going to accomplish with John?
Well, this is not John. This is Chip John.
Yeah, but it might as well be. Like, I mean...
Oh, no, I know. But, I mean, as far as Scorpius is concerned, there is no risk in exposing himself to this Chip John. And therefore, he can, like, say anything he needs to, whether it be true or a lie. He can still say, like, okay... And he's obviously thinking that, like, knowing what he knows about John, that this is, in his opinion, the most likely to get to John to help him. Like, just literally just create sympathy. Yeah, empathy.
Yeah. Because that has been a motivator for Crichton in the past. Ooh, especially children. He saw that in Look at the Princess.
Yeah.
My child deserves a father made me a statue.
Right?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Once there was did Scorpius know about that? Oh, I don't know if he knew about that.
Probably not, no.
But the possibility of a child that really sort of motivated John to, change his mind about things that he was quite adamant about before.
I mean, he probably can't torture John, or he knows that it's not going to work.
Right. I mean, he did that all through season 2, and this is as far as he got.
Yeah. So, and there's no cost for him to do this. So he might. Well, there is a bit, but that's because he's like frying himself.
I don't like these readings.
Are they at critical levels?
No, but they soon will be.
Then proceed as Scorpius instructed.
I kind of like how it's being projected in the sort of mind palace. Like there's this wall of steam coming down that the images are projected onto.
And you get this fade out through effect from the actual shot to John looking at this projection in the cloud. Yes, that's very well done.
That must have been shot on site. Because I've seen that sort of before where sort of vapor projector screens are being used, like Sequest DSV. Ooh, also a Rockney Esoban and Jam. They had screens that just came down from the ceiling as a wall of vapor that a projector sort of projected on.
Yeah, I mean, yes, why not?
Yeah.
So, back on Moya, once more, we see a prowler being brought in.
Yes, it emits a distress signal, which Dargo and Chiana both insist Pilot should ignore.
Pilot, starburst away immediately.
And Pilot says,
No.
No, not doing that.
And like even Dargo points out, this is exactly how Talon was trapped previously.
But Moya doesn't sense anybody or anything that they could hide behind, and Linfer gets brought on board.
Yes, because she is a Relgarian.
What's a Relgarian?
And that's a species that Moya and Pilot just trust.
Yeah.
What, as opposed to us?
She is brought on board and proudly proclaims that she has solved the wormhole problem. And she makes a complete twist. The way she acted around Scorpius was much more like the stiff little, I'm correct, scientist. And around here, she is much more agreeable.
You have nothing to fear from me, and much to gain. Tell Crichton I offer him the secret to wormhole travel.
Basically, she goes like, guys, I came to find you guys, and I want to give you this technology. I defected. It's basically like the Russian jet pilots who fly with their MiG Foxbat over to Japan and goes like, hey, hi, you saw me. Sorry I scared you, but here I am, and here's all the information that you wanted. I ain't giving it to Scorpius. I'm here to give it to you.
Yeah. Setting up a bit of a theme of enlightened self-interest. Now, we did skip over a few bits that I thought were really cool.
Yeah.
Like, during her transmission, Lynn first spoke directly to pilots in a language that pilot seems to speak.
Leviathan vessel, I am Linfer. Kitananek, Utmak Klinyashina, Ane?
Pilot, do not answer them.
Shochu, Takek al na.
Anna.
Moya and I greet you in return.
It doesn't sound like the pilot language that we've heard before.
It's probably her own language.
Slow. Remember, simple sentences.
At least that's what I assumed.
I got that too.
Yeah.
But he really enjoyed speaking with her. She also addresses pilot and not the rest of the crew. And when her ship is brought in, we've got the docking dildos being upgraded. Look, it's got lights on it now.
Yes, I know.
It's kind of cool. And gosh, you once again get a reminder of just
how huge Moya is. Yeah.
Right. Because yes, her she's now seeking asylum.
Essentially, yes.
Actually, so we follow this thread now before we return to Scorpius.
Okay.
Because this sort of sets up her next move is to make a proposal that she can give John the wormhole knowledge that she has, the negative phase shielding protection, like she says.
Yes, she basically says you were lucky because you must have just lucked out that you didn't die when you went through the wormhole, despite the fact that they've been back in and out of the wormhole several other times in the meantime.
But that was with Pathfinder technology.
True.
Am I wrong, or is your Farscape generator the key?
Correct pronunciation, and yes.
So she says that she's figured out that this negative phase shielding technology protects you from liquefaction that comes from unstable Ranthax flux. Wow, look at me. I'm a good little nerd, aren't I? Which most wormholes are. And he was just lucky that the first one he traveled through just happened to... Yeah.
Well...
the next wormhole that we saw was in a human reaction, and that was created for him by the ancients, so they would have made a safe one.
Yes.
And then after that, the next one was...
the one where they ran into the
Pathfinders, who evidently had technology to traverse wormholes safely.
But which they also must have conveyed onto John's module, because that's one he's flying around in with Rigel when he's hopping through the various wormholes. So he must already have that.
Just give me the gizmo and tell me what to do.
So we haven't seen him fly his module through a naturally occurring wormhole since then. So her hypothesis is actually, you lucked out that one time.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get lucky again. Is actually kind of valid.
And she makes him an offer. She goes I'll let you have it in exchange for Moya.
I offer you this knowledge.
At what price?
Moya.
Which sounds absolutely sort of inhumane and brutal. How did that land with you when she sort of made that offer? What was your reaction?
I didn't really have a lot of time to react to it because John immediately says no deal.
Yeah.
It's no, not a moment's hesitation. It's no deal. It's
he's even gun at her at this point.
Even the prospect of going back home is no deal. Not getting that. Until several moments later, it turns out that Pilot and Moya kind of wouldn't mind that. Because apparently they what these people like to do is take Leviathans and then go exploring the deep unknown space. And Pilot's all about that.
Linfers is a peaceful race of explorers. They use Leviathans to journey into deep space, areas completely unknown. Something Moya and I have dreamed of doing.
Pilot, you and Moya would really consider this?
Moya and I would never abandon you, Commander.
Yes, but given the choice.
And you can see Pilot almost tugging his little shirt collar.
Yeah, well, and this is where again we get to the situation where John's choice aligning with someone else's, which gets thrown at him by Dargo and Chiana.
Justifiably, I think.
Can you stop pretending this is anything other than your idea?
Because now he's pro-deal. And he's trying to sell. It's called a housemates meeting.
Yeah.
He's trying to sell Chi, Jewel, and Dargo on taking this deal, and he's saying it's what's best for all of us.
Yeah.
Us together, all of us. If we all take it, it's also good for Pilot and Moya, and it's good for everybody, right?
Yes.
And they're sick of his bullshit.
Which is kinda. I mean, they might be sick of his bullshit, but he's not entirely wrong, because moments ago everybody was complaining about being cooped up on Moya.
Terrific. This is what we're arguing about, the chance to stay cooped up together?
But then again, now if they do get the wormhole technology, anybody can go wherever they want to go. And suddenly that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Jewel isn't all about that.
Yes.
Like returning home.
That's what I mean.
That seems like... Because... It's been kind of tricky to figure out why none of them can go home when they... Like, a lot of the times, anytime they want to go anywhere, they have a really easy time finding it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, those are just plot contrivances, and you kind of accept those, right?
For Chiana, yes, I can understand. She probably doesn't even want to go back to Nabari.
Oh, good point. She actually doesn't.
No. So she's probably going like, it'd be nice if we didn't spend 2 weeks back and forthing across the space to find more wormholes, but in fact just went to go to interesting places. Dargo is probably kind of lost his purpose as well. I mean, can he go back to the Luxon homeworld? I mean, isn't that still occupied by peacekeepers or whatever the hell's going on there?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's lost his purpose.
Yeah, I mean, his son's out there. He doesn't have any particular where to be. Like, can you imagine how this would have gone if Rigel had been on Moya instead of Chiana? Because Rigel...
I am a dominar of action.
A wormhole weapon with which I can conquer my cousin Bishan and reclaim my throne. Yeah, that sounds great. Who wants to help?
Yeah, he'd be for that.
I'll pay you $20 a day. But, like... This sort of deal-making goes nowhere. They all have an opportunity to sort of snipe at each other. There continues to be some snipping between Jewel and a
little bit of bad atmosphere is
Chiana.
created here, but then it very quickly turns out that Linfer's technology wasn't quite as good as it claimed because she has delayed onset liquefaction syndrome.
Yes, she's suffering dolls, as it's unfortunately known. To Jewel's horror, I think it's good that Jewel's the one to sort of talk to her and see the state of her face, that she's bleeding from her eye and her cheek is sort of
starting to fall apart.
Because we don't really get a lot of confirmation. After this, we see Linfer flying out with her Prowler.
Yeah, she asks a favor from Jewel. Jewel obviously grants it. Prowler flies off. John comes running onto the command, goes like, "You let her go," and then...
Pilot, get that Prowler back here.
Thank you, Pilot, for granting my request. I'm sorry we won't travel together. Tucker high, tucker ho.
She rather destroys her ship and herself in the process than liquefying, I suppose, which, I mean, seems fair.
Yeah. I mean, you are depriving them of a Prowler that could be a useful thing.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. It's your Prowler. You get to do what you want with it.
Even Pilot gets asked, like, "Oh, you let her go?" And Pilot goes like,
"Correct.
Yes, I let her go."
Correct again. He stands behind his decision. And this is where the sort of conflict between Jewel and Crichton comes up, because Crichton says, "Oh, that's just a beautiful decision, man." Yeah, hold on. In this episode, within this story, he was on Pilot's side when Pilot's desires aligned with his own.
Yeah.
And now, as soon as they don't, he doesn't respect Pilot's ability to make good decisions. Like, Pilot decided that he wanted to go with Linfer, right? Even though he hadn't decided to actually do that. He did say that he wanted to do that. And Crichton didn't support that until he learned what was in it for him, wormhole knowledge.
Yeah.
And then he did support it. And now Pilot made another decision that was his to make.
Actually, no. I disagree, because he knew that the wormhole knowledge, it's the other way around. He knew what was in it for him was the wormhole knowledge, and the price was Moya. And then he only later learned that Pilot was actually okay with it. So he didn't want... Because Pilot's actually that's kind of what I'd want as well. So that's the other way around.
Yeah, you're completely right. That is entirely fair. He was swayed by Pilot. So Jules' perspective is a little bit limited. People are complicated, aren't they?
Yeah, funny that.
You happy?
Very happy.
Glad you're happy.
She's not entirely wrong, though. When she points that out to John, John says, okay, that's crap. And she bites back, truth is never crap. She doesn't need translator microbes to understand what he was saying. And that's the end of the Moya story.
Yeah, that nips that in the bud. It's like, sorry, no wormhole technology for you. Keep going the way you were.
Nothing gets resolved, really. Everybody just airs their dirty laundry.
Yeah, there's just a little bit more animosity between the various people, I suppose.
Because that's what they needed.
Oh, yeah.
Pick it up. Let's get this story over with.
Back to the Eurovision Song Contest's intermission sort of show.
We learn more about Scorpius' abilities, that he can see in the electromagnetic spectrum, which tells him to can see when people lie, which is finally confirms how he immediately knew that John,
that man,
was an imposter.
He is an imposter.
That man.
Yes.
I love the way he says it. Note to self, put in a clip of him saying exactly that and see how good an impersonation of Scorpius I did.
Yeah.
That man.
That man. He is an imposter.
As an imposter.
Seize him.
Seize him. I mean, this must be a difficult thing to realize. That something that you can do is not something that people can normally do.
Right, yes.
It reminds me of the story of a condition called aphasia, which I don't know is currently recognized. It's a very recent discovery, where a person is unable to visually imagine things, where you don't have the ability to create an imaginary image in your mind.
Yeah.
And it was sort of discovered when some gentleman... In my memory, he's Welsh, I don't know for sure, underwent brain surgery and then afterward reported to his surgeon, well, okay, I feel fine, but I'm no longer able to sort of picture things in my mind. And the surgeon went, what the fuck do you mean? And that's when the surgeon realized this is something that people can do because the surgeon couldn't do it either. Mm-hmm. And since the surgery, neither could the patient. And that's where it sort of clicked together that apparently, now that this story became known and people started examining their experiences of the world, something like 5 to 25% of humans don't have the ability to sort of create a visual image of something in their mind.
If you ask them, picture a beach and then, what does it look like? And they just can't make a mental image. Imagine a beach, and you're is there a chair? Is there a tree? And what kind of tree is it? And they can't answer that. They can only make it up as they go along. But there was no mental picture of that beach in there.
And we made it through thousands of years of having expressions like picture this or imagine that. And people who didn't have that ability, or, the other way around, people who did have that ability, none of them
ever realized that there's a percentage that people that can't do that. Yeah. Or at least.
And so for Scorpius to realize that he can look at someone and see things that they can't.
Yes.
That must have been quite remarkable. I mean, a clear indicator of his extraordinary genius-level intellect.
Yes. He uses this knowledge to escape, and he starts telling John about, the rest of his life, basically, how he got away from the peacekeepers and started making his way...
the Scarrans. Yeah.
He made his way away from the Scarrans, did a little bit of traveling around, and eventually, now we see a, 20-something Scorpius, I suppose. With a outfit which looks much more like the one that he was that he's wearing these days.
Basically, less sophisticated. Yeah, he's got a leather jacket and a sort of backpack plugged into his head.
Yeah, but, for the cooling system, and his skull cap is still a little bit loose. He still has to grow into that, I guess.
It's honestly, it's a kind of a hot look.
It's hot.
And he is surrendering himself to a peacekeeper captain.
Yes, because he's been interviewed by some interrogators to whom he gave a lot of information, but not everything. There were some secrets that he mentioned he would only reveal to a flag officer.
I go, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to deal with the captain. He's a very amiable fellow, isn't he, that captain?
Yeah, I noticed that as well. He's like the chillest peacekeeper we've ever seen.
Yes.
You'll deal with me or with more interrogators. Frankly, I'm a far better choice.
He seems like he's just holding a glass of gin in one hand and offering you another glass with the other. He's that kind of attitude.
He's a very friendly man.
To the point that he has already prepared what Scorpius wants. Because Scorpius reveals that his price for the knowledge that he has about Scarrans, of which he's only shown the tip of the iceberg, is knowledge of his own past.
I want to know the truth. Why? So you can find out who you are?
To find out who I should be.
Which Captain Molayne already has. Like, as soon as he asks that question, he says, hold out your hands, uncuffs him, and tells him, well, we already corroborated everything that you said, and we've worked out where you indeed come from.
Yes, which is a Sebacean colony ship, which was attacked by Scarrans. Only 2 people survived. They came down in what looks to me like a Leviathan pod.
Yes, it's mentioned that they were traveling on a Leviathan, and so they land on this ship. It was
yes, we have a little bit of a Blue Lagoon setting with one girl and one guy who have a scene in which there's a lot of Australian soap drama arguing.
It's like Home and Away, wasn't it?
Is.
It's like, just like Home and Away. I'm glad it wasn't just me. This is like a beach frontier like romance drama. It's a beautiful location.
Yes.
Scorpius even prefaces it
These next images are not memory, but reconstruction, based on the log tapes that Captain Molayne shared with me.
Hey, good point.
This was supposed to be our home.
Well, we're here.
No tools, no supplies, no grain seed. Just one pulse pistol and whatever's in this pod.
Like real pioneers.
And they have their little thing in their ship, which immediately gets invaded by Scarran.
Oh, God, yeah.
Guy gets killed. Girl gets kidnapped, I suppose.
A male Scarran who has a lot more sort of black markings on his face than we've seen before. Oh, is that true? Oh, I wonder if you've seen this Scarran before, because he might have been... he looks sort of similar to the one that was interrogating Crichton.
Right.
In Won't Get Fooled Again. Do you remember when he thought he was back on Earth?
They might have reused him and given him a few touch-ups.
What if it was the actual one?
It's possible.
What if he killed Scorpius's dad in that episode? Oh, I don't know. We'd have to check that.
Yes.
We don't really have a segment for feedback, but that's just a little sort of pet fan theory.
Right, and then we see what is, I suppose, a memory of Scorpius actually visiting that ship. This is where we see the flowers too. So the flowers are from.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
I should have foreseen it. I deserve what came next.
Oh, wow.
The spy flower we see at the beginning of the episode and at the end of it, that grew on this planet. So this is clearly has a certain emotional connection for Scorpius.
Right. So, yes. So the flower that was... I mean, is the flower...
Oh,
it's like a non-green sort of leaf.
It kind of looks like a flower. I don't know what it is. It grows in a plant. It could be anything. It looks flowerish.
You're a plant?
Always have been, John.
Good job. I have never noticed that.
Okay.
No, I mean, this is huge. I mean, this is why he has that in his... he must have gone back here a second time, because we see him going back to this abandoned transport pod. It looks sort of like...
it hadn't been touched in 10 years.
Or so I thought.
Aaron's pod in the locket.
Yes.
It's all aged and worn down and covered in cobwebs and filled with traps.
And I thought this was weird, because the voice we hear here, for a moment, I thought it was a pilot.
The pod is sealed. Do not attempt escape.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Yeah, just that's what it sounded like. It sounded like it was a pilot's voice. But it's not. It turns out to be his old harsh
stepmother.
Yes, that's the one.
And he's brought back to that cell.
Yep.
Where Tauza now taunts him with the various sort of surgical and mechanical upgrades that he's given himself.
How primitive.
Too feeble to conquer your own deficiencies without help.
And once again, that obsession with strength. Like, she looks down on him for having, like, prosthetic and assistive devices.
Yes.
That if you can't overcome your own weaknesses, you don't deserve to live.
Yeah, she unplugs his coolant hose and puts him under the pain light again.
Oh, brutal. Not stripping him of his suit otherwise?
No, I suppose not.
You are Scarran, or you are nothing.
Back to the command carrier, where we actually have several scenes in which there's an argument between, how did you put it again? Barbie?
PK Barbie. That's what his nurses are called. She's called Nurse Froy.
Okay.
She's got cool blue eyes. And
Braca, who are having arguments about whether or not he should be left in this mental state that he's in when he's accessing the chip.
His temperature's climbing. He's in danger.
Because she is responsible for Scorpius's health, and she's noticing, like, his vitals are going all over the place. I need to pull him out. And Braca says, no, you don't. What he's doing is important.
Yeah. Well, the first time round, they have this argument, and he goes like, are they critical levels yet? And no, they're not critical yet.
Right.
And then it eases off quickly enough. But the second time round, then Braca actually forces her away and lets Scorpius sort things out on his own.
We're here at a point where the sort of discussion doesn't matter because Scorpius wakes up anyway. He takes a little break and goes down to the research bay to talk to Strappa, who reports that we're not entirely sure.
We aren't sure, but we're checking now.
What? Maybe Linford defected.
Yeah, she doesn't come back and we haven't found the ship yet, and it's like either destroyed or she buggered off.
Well, keep looking, says Scorpius, and Braca sort of reinforces that. He leaves behind, another non-white peacekeeper.
He does look a bit Pacific Islander-ish, doesn't he?
Right, yes, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, he looks, Oceanian. What's the term?
Yeah.
Big, hunky, strapping fellow with fantastic eyebrows. He is... continuing the tradition of extremely sexy peacekeepers in general.
Yes, who is left to kind of menace the scientist, have him keep working on it, and
If Strappa doesn't move fast enough, give him some extra incentive. Clear?
Quite clear, sir. Keep checking! Keep checking!
After his moment's respite, Scorpius is back. I'm walking in the air. I mean, he was not content just to be recaptured, even though Scorpius previously said, like, I was such a fool for being caught by that simple trap on the pod. It was so little effort. I should have seen it coming. I deserved what came next. But he still fought his way free. Even with a full Scarran, who he finally taunted into revealing the truth.
Yes. He says, like, I know you were lying. And I know that my father wasn't a Sebacean, but that my father was a Scarran.
Yeah.
At which point, What's-Face... Tauza just shows him, like, yes, this is kind of like a rape scene that we see.
Yeah. Like, this was a really difficult scene to film.
Yeah, I can
because
imagine.
The director, Ian Watson, like, they had a lot of discussions, like, how are we going to show this? And the decision was made, like, the drama should be carried by the actress's face, and every male in the room should feel guilty afterward. Which...
Yes.
I mean, it's a really, like, she's strapped down. So Scorpius's mother, whose name is Rylani Jima Delos. Delos is apparently the family name because the other male that was with her was also named Delos.
Rylani Jima Delos. Born on New Heather. Disappeared on the Motac 4 colonization flight. Age 22 cycles.
In a chamber that looks very much like where Scorpius is being held. And I'm not exactly sure how he's being shown these images. It seems to be coming through the dentist pain light.
Right.
That he's even feeling it.
Yes, that's a bit unclear. I didn't get that impression that he was, but it could be.
Yeah,
I think the pain light is just what's causing the pain.
So where are these images coming from? And
yeah, we do have this like gorgeous, well, gorgeous is not the right word, but very well done shot, which is the fade between Scorpius's mother's face being projected in the smoke again, and the fade over to John, which was like, yeah, that was a really powerful moment. And it's like, again, I think Scorpius is kind of using this to like get the sympathy vote from John.
Right, yeah. Because he also responds to women in distress, women and children in particular. Like it's that old sort of Southern chivalry.
Yes.
That he must have noticed in John by now.
But he tells him that, like, don't worry, it's almost over. And we get basically the scene of how he fights himself free from his tormentors. His evil stepmom gets the basically 2 glow rods to the eyes.
Yeah. Scorpius pretends to puke, but it was just to retrieve the elongated cooling rod, snaps it in two, jabs them into her eyes, continuing what Ricky Manning calls the eye pummeling theme of, from...
I mean, it seems to be a weak point on Scarrans. I mean, they don't have many.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the only soft bits, and you go for the soft bits.
True, yeah. I mean, like, one of those Scarrans actually gets shot straight on in this episode, and like, yes, she kind of shrugs it off. Like, yeah, I just got shot, whatever.
They got thick hides, those Scarrans. Yeah. So he sort of snaps it in two, and following in the tradition of, DNA mad scientist.
Stick a needle in my eye.
Needles in the eyes, and a clockwork Nibari where the eyes were pulled out.
Yes.
I don't want my eyes sucked out again.
Now she's got like two sort of
cooling rods, heated up cooling rods stuck in the eyes,
jammed in her eyes, but like she's not down for the count.
Oh no, she just keeps going, and it's quite a tough fight, even though the fact that she's blind and presumably in a lot of pain. She tries to use her pain ray or whatever it is that this Scarrans can do,
blindly waving it about.
Yep, but young Scorpius makes his way out of the torture chamber or the cell, closes the sliding doors behind her, and floods the room with cold.
Oh, yes. You even see the sort of cooling rods go from red to blue in her eyes. It sort of looked like, do you remember in Pirates of the Caribbean where one of the pirates has a wooden eye and then he gets a fork stuck into it and you see the fork sort of turning around?
Depending on which way he's looking, yes.
As if that's how it works. Oh, absolutely brilliant. And down she goes.
Yep.
And then Scorpius sort of says, well, you'd think after my previous escape they would
have instituted some rudimentary security on their transport pods. But they hadn't.
But apparently not.
No, they're not very good at it.
He just escaped the same way.
Well, he actually calls the carrier to him and helps them defeat the dreadnought.
Yeah, that he was being imprisoned on, and that earns him special dispensation for the purity regulation.
Yes.
Given your unique status and clear loyalties, you are hereby exempted from all purity regulations.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Because he's shown himself to be ambitious and capable, and we can use this man.
Inarguably loyal as well.
And that too. And he manages to work his way up. So what we actually learned, it's one more thing that I think we need to talk about, is that, like, how many of these Scarran hybrids did they try to make? Something like 45 or 90 even.
1 out of 90
survived.
That actually survived, and that was Scorpius,
And then they decided, like, okay, Sebaceans are useless because we can't even use them for breeding stock, which seems a bit, like, odd to go. They're like, I mean, I guess Scarrans are about, like, improving themselves by crossbreeding. I mean,
yeah.
But we've seen more Sebacean half-breeds. It's interesting that there seems to be a lot of crossbreeding going on in this universe.
Yeah, for Scarrans in particular, it seems to be about utility.
Cristerium utilia, an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Because I sort of imagine from this, like she says that
Sebaceans have no value, even as breeding stock. Instead, the Sebacean race will be eradicated.
Right? That's also something that Scorpius has to deal with. The fact that he didn't have value to Tauza informed their policy decision to therefore extinguish the Sebacean species. That if he'd proven more useful, they would have decided not, the Sebaceans would not have been threatened with extinction, only with enslavement for reproductive purposes.
Yes.
Which
leads beautifully into basically Scorpius's final argument for John, saying that
you and I have a common enemy, Scarrans. Trying to exterminate the Sebaceans, but they won't stop there. Nor with Luxons, Delvians, Bannics, or 1,000 other lower life form, they'll stop. When they are the only sentient species left, and if they discover wormhole technology before we do,
they'll have access to the entire universe, and they will eventually find Earth, and they will wipe out Earth.
Because that's what they'll do with every species. They consider themselves the only ones who have
They're kind of like the Borg, I suppose.
Yeah.
Except they're not for assimilation, but destroying unless they can be made use of.
Yeah. Like they presumably also have other forms of utility for species.
Right.
Labor, I guess, right? They seem like the kinds to have enslaved vassal species. Not that we've seen any at this point, but if they make those decisions, like which species gets to exist or not.
And John seems kind of sympathetic, but then he calls up the little cluster of wormhole information that is floating around in his head, and he reaches out to touch it, and goes like,
"It's not mine to give away."
Because what they said is like, if you're not clever enough to develop it on your own, you're not clever enough to handle it responsibly.
I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out in a way.
It kind of is, but, you know...
I mean, I'm not fully convinced by that, but it's a bit of a cop-out, sort of hiding behind someone else's policy instead of making his own decision.
I mean, yes, it could be done just to annoy Scorpius.
Yeah. I mean, he did just, literally bury Aaron from his point of view, and it is Scorpius's fault.
Yeah.
And he'd like to spite him. In which case, once again, Crichton is sort of concealing his selfish motivation, wanting to spite Scorpius, behind some sort of lofty ideal.
Yeah, and he tries to walk off, but he keeps coming back to Scorpius. It's like Scorpius has it made that whichever direction John walks off in, he comes back, walking back immediately.
And John sort of collapses the information. Like, he makes the decision to end this. The sort of web of mathematics collapses into his hand, and Scorpius is shocked, and like we see him in real life just sort of gasping and struggling for life.
Yes, making his O face.
You've always got to bring it back, don't you? I'm so glad to have you with me, because otherwise I just get so into the sort of fandom and forget that we were doing a fun sort of... And this is the final battle between Nurse Froy and Braca, each of whom think that they have Scorpius's best interest at heart.
At least his mandate to act appropriately, where the nurse tries to bring him out of them, but Braca goes like, nope.
Once again doing the Braca backhand. He loves doing that.
Oh, slapping him across the face, yes.
We have to intervene.
Retrieve!
Not yet. He's onto something.
Oh, Scorpy, you're getting kind of warm to the touch. You should take a break and calm down.
The neural stress is killing him.
Not yet.
I am removing the chip.
I said keep away from him.
My duty is to Scorpius.
Eventually, John throws Scorpius out of the circle, which brings Scorpius coming back to consciousness in the real world.
He pops a rod.
He pops a rod blastingly. You see, like, Braca is clearly out of his depth here. Like, he looks at him wide-eyed. He reaches for the rod, burns his fingers on it.
Screaming. He does not like dealing with Scorpius' medical things.
You can clearly tell that he's not...
been super uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. Grabs the... And okay, I think this is where we see the chip being fried. You can see this little flash of light. And I think that's where the chip gets fried.
Okay, because we actually rewound this scene a few times to see what happens. Because first there's the cooling rod pops out of the side of Scorpius' head. Then there's a flash of sparks. Then Braca pulls the rod out, which burns his little fingers. Scorpius yells something unintelligible.
Mm-hmm.
And we went back and we tried to turn on the subtitles, but it's not subtitled.
Then Braca grabs the chip, which we're thinking like the chip, and I'm like, that's not where the chip was before. But I think
it's not in the socket.
But that little flash that we see is probably the chip burning out.
And he holds it up in front of him while stressing out, and then throws it down
in disgust. You have the little rod ejector device which pops out a fresh cooling rod for her.
It's like the R2-D2 school of dispensing swords.
Yes, it's like the lightsaber pops
bouncing.
out. Yeah.
Like, even when he was holding the spent cooling rod and he tossed it down, it still bounced back up on it.
Yes.
Really bing, bing, bing.
A new one gets pushed in. Scorpius immediately goes back to his happy place and goes, John? But there doesn't seem to be a John. There doesn't seem to be a residue here, even though we later learned that the chip has been fried after it's come back from the lab and it's no longer useful. So
yep. And neural John is gone.
Yes. So at least we are back to 2 Johns rather than 3 Johns.
Gosh. But all is not lost for Scorpius.
Vulcan 9, Exponent 9. Devra 4, 3, 1. Equivalence Maslet 9. Palanex square. Equivalence integral 9. Velka hypercube. Brel-matic 6. Lurg 1. That's everything I recall.
because he paid attention during the collapse of the sort of map. And he's
He
able to...
like hypercube, telta, alpha,
very
telma. Yes,
good.
That's like basically he recites as much as he can remember back to the scientist dude.
Strapper. Kokura Strapper.
Strapper.
Yeah, Kokura Strapper, who's typing it all into his like Peacekeeper Texas Instruments calculator, T90.
Yes. I tried to see what it was, but it seems like to be some sort of box with a curved lid.
It looks like a Nintendo DS with a
like,
decal on it.
Yes, kind of, but more curvy.
It's incomplete. But it should be enough to put us on the correct track.
It certainly will, sir. I can already see solutions to several previously unknown variables.
Who seems to be very much pleased with the information that he gets. He goes like, oh no, this will be more than enough. Like several variables have already been
revealed.
Yes.
He's very excited.
He is very happy with that.
He sort of tucks it down. You see how his makeup doesn't extend to the palms of his hands?
Oh no, yes, you're right.
You'll see that fairly often with people who are touching things that they don't bother doing makeup on the inside of the hands. And lastly, as Scorpius is relaxing, playing with that ball of his.
Yes, I was wondering what that was.
That we've seen him playing with it before. It seems to be a stress ball, and Crichton had one as well on the command. We've seen him playing with one on Moya before.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's already been established. Like that's not the same ball. It's just a toy that they both seem to enjoy. And he has a little chat with Braca, who says he was worried that he might have made the wrong decision, but no, your decision was...
No, he actually calls him back and commends him for a job well done.
Yeah, he does that thing where Braca asks...
Will that be all, sir?
For the moment.
And then he's, okay, well, then I'll just leave. Oh, and Lieutenant... Yeah, God, I did just ask.
Yes. But no, he commends him much to Braca's surprise and pleasure.
God, he is just wagging there.
Yes.
He's like a little border collie with his ears up. And, I did a good job. Yeah, so much better than treats.
I hope my conduct continues to find favour.
Ass kisser.
He'd sure love to. They are eye-frelling each other here in this scene, aren't they?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay, don't touch me then.
And we have Scorpius wander up to his flower, which he's got there.
Which you called the Bird of
Paradise.
Bird of Paradise.
Yeah.
He seems to really enjoy it.
Yes.
He sort of smiles at it. Because...
gives it a little stroke and caress. And yeah, that's the story so far, Farscape.
Wait, do we do it?
Sorry,
No, that's not how we do it.
No, you're right. Sorry. My bad.
Wait, how do we do it?
I don't know. Like,
we talk about the Willies and the Woodies.
Yeah.
Button number 3.
She gives me a Woody.
Yeah.
She gives you a Willy.
Oh, God.
Yeah, tricky.
Willies first. Let's see.
I mean, all of it.
Well,
it's one of those ones again. We've had a harder and harder time with the Willies and Woodies, and I think it's because we're kind of you especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of used to the sort of body wildness
Yes.
right? And the design choices, like you're kind of into it now. So it doesn't seem weird. Choices don't seem weird because Farscape's just weird.
Is weird out there, yeah. I mean, the obvious choice would be to give the Willy to the rape scene. Because that's like Willy's all the way. Well,
yes.
that came out really wrong.
No, I get you. And
but if I had to give it to an aspect of the show rather than of the story, I'd say it's like young Scorpius. It's like,
well, that's fair.
I didn't really resound with me. Like the high forehead and the almost Beetlejuice-like makeup.
Oh, right.
That was
actually that's Strapper. Strapper is really Beetlejuice. He's got the sort of Uncle Fester kind of look.
No, I see what you mean.
Okay, sorry. Not to interrupt.
Woody goes to, I think, the scenes between John and Scorpius, where Scorpius gets a taste of his own medicine, having to deal with the recalcitrant mental constructs.
Okay. Oh, I wonder what Scorpius' nickname for John would have been in this case. He doesn't seem like the creative type.
No, probably not, no.
I'm having similar difficulties. I mean, yeah, I'm actually going to have to give mine to the sexual assault scene. I mean, that was a pretty, like, that was just brutal. And also, like,
I think it was, like, I mean, for all how the harshness and the intensity, it was very well handled, very well done.
Yes. I mean, in so far as it's not an experience that I can relate to, and clearly very, very traumatic. I mean, I think this whole episode needs...
But it was meant to make everybody uncomfortable,
exactly.
The viewers, yeah.
But I mean, in sort of the general sense, like this episode deals with, I mean, for people who've had serious injuries or burns. I mean, I have had a burn injury myself, of which I was very lucky to heal very well. But like that sort of body horror of the tissue liquefaction and young Scorpius and the tale of his origin. I mean, all of that was really intense and piled on top of each other. And in fact, I'm not sure whether it was more or less palatable because it was all jammed in together. I sort of feel like it's easier to handle when everything is so gothic and, you know, when it's a full horror episode.
Rather than stringing it out and drip feeding it.
Right, yeah. And my Woody... Yeah, my Woody goes to
John's
the scenes between John and well, I mean, obviously, but just the sort of moonlight shadow set, whose only feature is that it turns red when he's hot, and for the rest of like that was really elegant. It was actually really fun to watch such an uncomplicated set.
I mean, it's all about what the actors bring to it at that point.
Oh, wait, I've changed my mind. Sorry, I just wound up on the gif of the wicked stepmother with the two spikes out of her eyes just running around. That is so cool.
Okay, eye spikes, get your Woody.
And that's the story so Farscape.
Join us next week for another Tales of the Uncharted Territories, and the week after that with episode 312, Meltdown. I think this one should have been called Meltdown rather than, you know... in which Talon's passengers find their baser urges irresistible during a struggle to save the ship from a star's mesmeric pull. Oh.
Ooh, does that sound good?
That sounds exciting.
You can find us at SoFarscape on Facebook and Twitter. As always, we'd love to hear from you. You can find all our links at sofarscape.com/links if you want to share your synopses or recommend a fanfic, or you want to support us, as so many of our supporters have done. In fact, actually, let me pull the brakes here. Thanks to our supporters, we were able to afford the Creatures of Farscape book, which includes some pictures of young Scorpius, which I I wanted to show you earlier, but you weren't super turned on by the sort of design, so I think these images
this
that you're
doesn't
seeing...
even look like young Scorpius. This looks, I guess he looks like an older... I mean, did they get a different actor for a smaller actor, a child actor?
Yes, very good. Evan, I forget his name.
Can I flip?
No, you cannot.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Good that you asked. Yeah. This is like when you hand your phone to a family member to show a photo. Do not swipe left or right because you don't know what you're going to see. But hey, another thing that our supporters helped us afford was the Farscape role-playing book, which hasn't come up in a while. And I wonder, did you find anything useful in there for our sort of quest for knowledge?
It does have a few interesting things to say about Scorpius.
Ooh.
Like, the scariest person in the room never has to apologize for anything.
Okay.
Which is what, that's... there's another little bit about his character, which they say. It's like, if there is any length Scorpius won't go to, or any ethical scruples that might prevent him from reaching his goals, he has yet to show them. So I guess we get a lot of that in this episode.
I mean, for the role-playing book, that makes a special sense because it came out between seasons 2 and 3, so it only covers the first 2 seasons.
To be honest, like, if I had to have given another Woody, then it would have gone to Scorpius' character development.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that we get to learn a little bit more about Scorpius' backstory.
That's awesome. Yes, we barely talked about that, just how meaningful it is to see, like, to gain sympathy for the devil, to see how he came to be.
Yeah.
Thank you for that reading from the Farscape role-playing book. Once again, thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon, including recently we've got some new ones. There's Black Rain. Let me see. Paul, thank you so much for your contribution. David, let me see. Andy and Life on Fire. Thank you so much.
We'd really appreciate everybody.
And once again, like the support levels start at $1. We put some fun gifs out. We really appreciate everyone. And hey, if things get tight and you don't have any, there's absolutely no judgment. Just thank you. I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay.
So Farscape, so good.